Good evening, beloved. This is Apostle Trotter with Giving Hands Ministries Internationals out of St. Louis, Missouri. And I felt compelled to make this video because I've been watching so much in the news as well as statements made by people that say that they are a part of the community and yet not a part of the community, and they support and yet not support. One in particular, a person by the name of Johnathan Gentry, that's supposed to be one of the ministers of Church of God in Christ. First and foremost, I want to say to this young man that's only 30 years old, I grew up in the Church of God in Christ, or we call the Grand Old Church, and I was licensed there, I was ordained there, and I got my pastorate there. And I've never seen such blatant disrespect for, first and foremost, your ministry. And your presiding bishop gave an official statement from the church as to relates to the riots, the looting, and the issues concerning Michael Brown. That statement should stand for the whole church if you're part of and under that leadership. It's very disrespectful for a leader to go beyond the statements that were made by their presiding bishop and begin to blast a culture of people, calling them things such as apes and things as a George of the jungle and various negative things that only perpetuates the stigma that many of us are being labeled on a day-to-day basis, as well as stereotyped. Son, I would suggest that you grow up, and first and foremost, you got a lot to learn. You say you were back there in the times of the riots and back there in the time of the protests years ago. If you was, then you would understand that marching and looting is two separate issues, and they don't cross each other. I've been out into the Michael Brown situation since 3 days after the shooting, and us as clergy, including people from your organization, Kojic, and that was ordered by your presiding bishop to come down and show their support for the Michael Brown incident. None of us at any time has been condoning or been a part of the rioting and the looting. And as far as the peaceful protesters, I've been out there with the peaceful protesters, and none of them have looted or rioted anyone's shop, anyone's business, as well as caused any problems with the police. Most of the problems that have occurred in the community is from outsiders, people that don't even live in St. Louis. And also, if you look at some of the evidential video that has been placed out there, some of the burnings was not all protesters or agitators, if you will. Some of them was from people with uniforms on, fatigues. So these are compelling truths that you need to take a look at before you make these negative statements concerning your people. First and foremost, African American people have always and will always be a great nation of people. And we're not just going around the mountain. You are enjoying the freedoms that your forefathers and your grandparents and your great-grandparents have afforded you with their lives, their blood, sweat, and tears, and their prayers. So for you to disregard the march, the thing that Martin Luther King gave you right now, you enjoy the right to vote because of that march. You enjoy the equality in education because of that march. You enjoy being able to live in a good area and drive a Mercedes Benz, all because of people like Rosa Parks, peoples like Martin Luther King, peoples like even Al Sharpton, that was back there in the 50 years plus ago, that have given their lives and placed their life on the line for equality and desegregation amongst the African American community. If they wouldn't have never paid their life, son, you wouldn't be on national television saying anything, because before 50 years ago, you were looked at as a black boy, and you were looked at as the same ape that you try to complain and try to rant concerning. So I would tell you to take a look in the mirror first and foremost. And the word says, you talk about Deuteronomy 2, but the word says, judge not that ye be not judged. And the word also declares that if you see your brethren overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore one in the spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. To me, your attitude and your ranting that you've done on the YouTube as well as the news media is no different than the rioting. It's no different than the so-called unpeaceful agitators that came down there and caused trouble and caused many of the peaceful protesters to go to jail. A person have a First Amendment right to express their views of any injustices that exist in this nation. That has been given by the Constitution, and that has been something that our forefathers have fought for. We enjoy the comforts of the wave that has been paved by people that have given their lives. See, you need to go back and look at some of those videos. You need to go back and look at how they drug our people through the streets, how they sicked dogs on us, how they sprayed uh, fire hose on us, how they beat us in the middle of the streets. Yes, even Martin Luther King did some level of civil disobedience. He sat in the middle of the streets. He did sit-ins at the courthouse. He did sit-ins at the nations. He did all of those things. So before you make a judgment call, you need to take a look in the mirror, sir. I'm talking to you, Jonathan. You need to take a look in the mirror and see what has been paved, and you ought to be ashamed yourself, and you become the very thing that happened years ago that caused many of our people to be murdered because of people such as yourself that would be what we call a African American white man cider. You the kind of person that have caused many of our people through the years to get murdered. The problem with African American people is not the ranting and the raving and the protesting. The problem with the African American people is that we don't stick together. And for you to get on national television and state the kinds of things concerning us, first and foremost calling us apes, if you will, then I take offense to that as an apostle and as a highest clergy office there is in the church. I take offense to that, and I take offense to your statements concerning our culture of people, because we paved our life for a little wet behind the ear person like yourself to live the life you live. So, sir, I implore you to pray about what you say. And first and foremost, if you are a minister, you're supposed to follow the lead of your presiding bishop. And what you've done is very disrespectful to your church. And furthermore, if you was under my leadership, I would sit you down, because you need to learn and be taught how to be obedient and humble yourself. So I implore you to pray for you get on national television and rant just like you declare we do, and talking about we shall overcome. We shall overcome gave you voting rights. We shall overcome gave you the ability to drive a Mercedes. We shall overcome gave you the ability to live in the neighborhoods you lived in. Because, son, you couldn't live in those neighborhoods. You couldn't have the jobs you have. You couldn't get the education that you get. All because of we shall overcome gave you this opportunity so you can be who you are today. And for you to discount that, that is a smear in the face of all the people that have given their lives for you. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, and you owe your culture. People like Martin Luther King, people even like Al Sharpton, people like Jesse Jackson, people like many other folks that have given their life, you owe them an apology, because they were there. They know what happened. They know how they took a rifle from a third-story building and shot Martin Luther King in cold blood just because he was speaking out concerning the injustice that you so blatantly disregard. You so blatantly enjoy. You enjoy those luxuries now because somebody gave their life. Think about it. Look in the mirror. Behold yourself in the mirror before you judge anyone else. God bless you. And humble yourself, son.